Bueno, buenos días a todos.
Good morning to all of you. Let's start with the second day of the workshop on electronic phytocertification. Thank you for being here again. And before giving the floor to Rafael Mendieta from Paraguay, who's going to continue with the moderation of the countries, I would like to tell you that we have 10 speakers for this session for the presentations of the NPPOs and the RPPOs. We have time to do this. We don't need to rush. We don't need to hurry. So take your time, refer to all the information that you have, make all the questions that you may have, as we said yesterday, or for all the people who are here, or for those people who have joined us remotely. Please, we invite you to ask the questions for the countries. So now I am going to give the floor to Rafael, who's going to continue with the moderation of this section. Good morning, how are you? Today we're going to continue, as Ezequiel mentioned, with the presentations of the NPPOs. But before that, I would like to invite Stephanie Bloom, Executive Secretary of the North American Plant Protection Organization, NAPO. NAPO consists of Canada, the United States, and Mexico. So I'm going to give the floor to her. Rafael is a very tall person, so I have to adjust the microphone for me. Good morning to all of you. Thank you, Rafael. Thank you, Ezequiel. For me, it's a pleasure to be here with you in Argentina and to be able to bring you information about the status of electronic certification in my region, in the NAPO region. As indicated before, I am the Executive Director of the regional organization that represents the three countries from North America, Canada, United States, and Mexico. And I would like to tell you that our secretariat is in the North Carolina state, so I invite you all to visit us. I would like also to thank the flexibility of the organizers. Yesterday, it was impossible for me to make this presentation because I had just arrived after several hours flying, so I think that I'm better off to do it today. So thank you for your flexibility. I would like to thank the three countries of my organization because this presentation has slides provided by them. So I'm going to try to make the best effort possible to respect their work. Thank you very much. Next slide. So first, I would like to tell you that, as Ezequiel mentioned, in the COSADE region and in the NAPO region as well, we have a permanent group that works in the area of electronic certification. This work gets together from 3 to 6 times a year on a virtual basis. And in these meetings, we discuss the development of electronic certification in our three countries, and particularly the challenges that each one of them has found. Our organization, regional organization, is the only one from the 10 organizations at a regional level that include the private sector. So in our expert group for electronic certification, we do not only have members from the public sector from our three countries, but also members of the industry. So I invite you to have a look at this link if you would like to see who the representatives of the private sector are. As regards the importance of electronic certification for our region, I think that on many occasions the monetary contributions refer to volumes, and in the case of North America, the biggest coffin is by the United States, the biggest box, and In the year 2017 to this year, the United States has contributed $850,000 to the International Organization of Phytosanitary Protection, the IPPC, for electronic certification, the hub and the gens, and all the systems involved. Yesterday, Rodrigo from Chile mentioned that he works with the other RPPOs from the Americas, were 5 in the GICSV group. And in this group, the experts from NAPO participate, and here I'm going to show you the names of the experts from NAPO that take part in this group. Rodrigo mentioned the survey that was so interesting, that was worked with this group on a jointly basis, but we had other activities in this group. For example, COSAVE developed a contingency plan in Spanish, and one of the members from the GISCV speaks English, and 2 of the countries we translated into English this contingency plan. Also, the colleagues from the Caribbean developed a roadmap to establish a gens.
This document was crafted in English, and NAPO translated this document into Spanish. Now let me go to the state of e-Phyto in each of our regions, and unlike what we normally do from north to south, I decided to do it from south to north. So let us start with our colleagues in Mexico. So as you can see in this slide, we can have a scheme of the progress made by Mexico from 2015 to the present date. In the first year of that period, they developed the concept of the e-Phyto scheme for Mexico jointly with the expert from all the NAPO countries. In 2019, they started their connection and their exchanges of e-Phytos with the countries of the Alliance for the Pacific. It's a single window system that Mexico has. In April 2021, they formalized the exchanges with one of the countries within NAPO, that is the United States, for imports and exports. And in May 2022, they started exchanges with some countries in Central America. In 2023, they are in a process and they're having discussions with the European Union to integrate them in their exchanges of e-Phytos. Next one, please. Our colleagues from Mexico wanted to share with you how they are doing with their e-Phytos in terms of exports. And as you can see in the chart, they're issuing more and more electronic certificates. This slide shows the products, the commodities that they export, and they are using more electronic certification. So papaya is a significant product, as you can see. You can see the list of the other commodities. Mexican colleagues also point out, and they talked about this, there are electronic certificate for seeds as well. As for imports, Mexico states that on this map and with this list, the countries with which they exchange electronic certificates, and as you can very well see, the United States, even though they started some years ago, it's the business partner with which they exchange the most. And this graph shows that 13% of the certificates are issued for seeds and for the other goods. That is 87% of the certificates. Next slide, please. Mexico wanted to share with you the opinions that they hold and the benefits of the e-Phyto And they feel that the review of the phytosanitary documentation is essential. It's an anticipated review, and the management of printed paper. It's an agile way of working with electronic certification. There is security. If Phyto provides security, it prevents fraud and the improvement of inspections at the port. Next one, please. So, what lessons have our colleagues from Mexico learned? The coordination and direct communication between all the stakeholders, all the actors working on e-Phyto. That is important. I'm an entomologist, so I do not understand much about the IT system for the process to work. So it's important to talk to each other, to understand each other, to speak the same language with the IT expert, the phytosanitary experts. In addition, Mexico states that a contingency plan where you write down all the challenges faced, it's a document, it's a significant task for all the countries to do. And my colleagues from Mexico want to state that they're willing to work with you to exchange e-Phytos or to start testing. And here we have the contact details. Edgar, Delfino, they belong to our group of NAPO, and they are willing as experts to collaborate with you. So let's go to the next slide. Now, the slides are in English and they have been provided by the United States, but I will make reference to them in Spanish. Next slide, please. The United States at the time, the this is not AFIS, sino el PPQ, that is the service of quarantine, and they're sending e-Phytos to 90 countries through the system which issues certificates, and they can be tracked. This system is called PISIT, and it is a system used by the United States for these purposes. PISIT. United States is receiving e-Phytos from 67 countries. The latest news in terms of the US, and Helen mentioned this in her presentation yesterday, is that now the United States is working with Germany from March this year, and Germany is sending e-Phytos to the US through the TRACES system. And in March, they started sending electronic certificates to Paraguay. And they are currently working with Thailand and Malaysia to establish that connection. They also provide you with the link where you can check the list of e-Phyto trading partners of the US so far. Next slide, you have the contact details of the experts. We met Christian Delis yesterday, but also Michael Perry and other experts as well. But they are the leaders, and they are very willing to collaborate with you. Now, as for my country, more to the north, Canada, so far, Canada is preparing its program for electronic certificates in its platform. It's a digital service delivery platform, DSDP. And they're thinking that the first country with which they're going to exchange e-Phytos will be the United States, probably this year. As for the design of the e-Phyto program, they are paying attention to customer service in the private sector. So for them, the design of this platform and to see the needs of the private sector is very significant. So their system is going to have an online access to the private sector where they can request a new certificate, to modify a certificate. If a certificate has to be removed or cancelled or reissued, this service will be part of this platform. Next slide, please. The platform will support all the industry or the business processes. For instance, if there is a need to upload documents that are significant and that can support the e-Phyto to be able to see the draft certificate, if there are certificates that are frequently issued, to have a chance to copy and reuse them. Obviously, with the certificate number that is different, but for the same vendor, for the same products, for the same country, etc. And Canadian people are working with third-party representatives, so they want to give access to them as well. In addition, emphasizing on the private sector, they want to have a part of their system that responds to questions from interesting parties if they have any issues, challenges, and they want to have a system to a quality control system where they can find immediate and consistent answers to the questions of the private sector. They can determine immediately what the requirements are for that business partner and to provide immediate prompt solutions to questions that may or problems that may arise. Here you have the contact details of the colleagues working on electronic certification in Canada, and even though they haven't started operating, they are ready to cooperate with you as well. Finally, North America is represented in the Bureau of the IPPC, and they asked me to tell you the result of the discussions about the long-term funding of e-Phyto. This was discussed in the last meeting of the CPM last March this year. In that case, there were data as to how much e-Phyto could cost at a global level, and the contracting parties tried to decide on a long-term funding plan. And I wanted to share something. The cost of e-Phyto, an annual cost, if we consider training and it's just $1.26 billion. So all the contracted parties are supposed to give their contributions to have this sustainable funding in the long run. There was no agreement in Commission 17, but I'm here to inform you that in the Commission 18, we expect to have a formal decision. So I am informing you that discussions go on. Among the discussions that we had in the Commission, we agreed for the Secretariat of the Commission to present an annual report for us to be aware of whether the costs have changed, the cost projections have changed, and how many certificates are being issued by countries. Next one, so as you can see, in March or April next year, the discussion of sustainable funding in the long run will be resumed, and we are hoping to have a final decision in this event. Next slide, please. So thank you very much, and I appreciate in the 3 languages that my region represents. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stephanie, and for your presence. Thank you for being here with us today. To continue with the agenda. Oh, I forgot. Any questions for Stephanie before we move on to the following presentation? Thank you for your presentation, Stephanie. A question. In the case of 1.3 million that you mentioned for maintenance and support, what does it involve? Is it the annual cost? Yes. Thank you, Kathy, for your question. That 1.3 million is the annual cost, precisely. It includes everything. It includes all countries to participate using the GENS or the hub. It includes a small plan, contingency plan, monetary contingency, so that this global system can be maintained and can be updated, because we know that IT is moving forward very fast. And it also includes the training of the countries that are coming on board in the e-Phyto system. I'm sure that you saw a smaller amount of 900,000. It includes everything except training. So that training, with that cost, which is smaller, on an annual basis, that training would have to be funded by each country. So it's really worthwhile. If you allow me to give you my personal opinion, for all of us to pay jointly that 1.3 million so that we can all have what we need. And as regards the distribution of those costs, there are several ways to propose this to the contracting parties. The first one is to consider the level of development of each country. That is, the more developed countries would pay more than those developing countries. Another way to distribute those costs, to share them, would be depending on the number of e-Phytos that are issued by each country. Interestingly enough, many developing countries are issuing more e-Phytos than developed countries. So that is another option. I hope I have answered your question, Kathy. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Maybe I can, from IPPC, I could follow up just a point of clarification. With the larger amount of money, the $1.3 million, the intention would be to have some broader capacity development training, but with the smaller number, the one that's about $933,000, there is training involved. There's training included in that, and it's basic training on the system itself. The higher number includes a little bit more capacity development training with regard to inspection procedures and operations support and things like that. There's also a small cost for a full-time position in the larger number. Right now, there's a smaller amount being paid for a full-time position. And with regard to paying for the system itself, one of the basic premises is that the least developed countries, and this is something that's been accepted by the CPM, the least developed countries in the world should not have to pay anything. And the costs will be, the proposal to have costs allocated by CPM member countries is based on some calculations that are done by the World Bank. And so that means that the richer countries, the higher GDP countries will pay more. But this is only a proposal, and it hasn't been accepted because there's another proposal to have FAO pay for the system out of their regular funds. And the expectation is if that were the case, it would probably be the lower number, and then outside resources, additional funding for capacity development would come from the contracting parties and other donors. Thanks.
Gracias. ¿Alguna otra pregunta? Bien.
Thank you. Any other question? Okay. So let's move on with our agenda. Now I would like to invite Alejandra Farias Arias. She is specialized professional from the Colombian Agricultural Institute.
Buenos días.
Good morning. I am going to talk a little bit about the certification process in Colombia. I'm going to tell you about how we started our process. We started this in the year 2012. We tried to find the resources, like as everyone, so to identify the benefits, the requirements. In the year 2012, we had a technological platform that was adjusted, but anyway, we needed to make some changes that could support the transmission of documents. We started working with the Netherlands between the 2014 and 15. We established certification with them. The point-to-point certification, that was the main destination of our products. That's why it was a great benefit for us. So 2 years ago, this certification is no longer valid because of traces, but we had a very good approach in the certification process. We also started working with the Pacific Alliance with Mexico, Chile, Peru, Colombia, and that was established in the year 2018, 2019. In the 2020, we started with the hub process, and last year we started with Intercom. Katy, our colleague, explained a little bit about this platform. So, with the Pacific Alliance in the year 2018, 2019, started with a paperless process. We finished also in the year 2020 with Chile. We have sent 8,938 certificates, stopping in March this year, and we have received 31,514 certificates. So we are more importers. But anyway, the system, as Rodrigo mentioned in his presentation, is working. We don't have any kind of problems, and process have had a good operation. So we have an interoperability between the trade single windows, and we have in the terms of e-Phyto in the hub, we started in the year 2020. And as AICA, we would like to thank Senasa Argentina that provided all the support at the beginning, supported the establishments of the XML and the processes, and to support our interoperability of the system and the integration of XML in the system, and the certified traces signature has been approved. In traces, we are only targeting certification with France. We have been doing this for a year. We have been issuing and receiving certificates with them. It is only France. We had some problems with the resources for this area. 1 week we have been allotted these resources, so we hope that we can start working with all the other countries that are issuing and receiving certificates, so that we can start the whole process with the different countries of the European Union. Other processes, well, Intercom, as it was mentioned yesterday, we are about to finish the analysis, the document review, and to see how we can start with the testing phase. And as an institute, we proposed in the year 2020 a project for the Global Alliance for Trade Facilitation, focused on the strengthening and the improvement of our processes on the border. So it has all these components, and one of them is electronic certification, of course. And we finished the diagnose stage. The intention is to propose improvements for our project, to strengthen and to integrate more countries. And in 1 year, we're going to start the adjustments for the short term. And in 6 months, we expect to finish this. So we will have a more robust, strengthened system. This is what we're aiming at. We would like to make adjustments to the XML for those processes, for transmission at the level of certificates, and we can also do this at the product level to move forward in this area. This is the strengthening that we are carrying out right now. As regards regulations, standards, the Annex 12 refers to electronic certification, and we have resolution number 2093
This is the regulatory basis, so this resolution allows for the exchange of electronic certificates. As for our interoperability, as I was said before, we have our own system, that is SISPAP, that is the Health Information System for Agricultural Product Export and Import. We're working on this. We have the integration of XML. We have a partnership with VUSE and TIPAC, and it returns to the country, CISPAC, and with the Latin community, we have the VUSE system. As for how we deal with the process in terms of export, when we started implementing, we had harmonized the issuance of phytosanitary certificates. Each user has a key, a login key. So they log in, they make the requests, they pay for the services, they complete the processes, and step the inspectors, after doing the physical inspection, create the document. The information entered by inspectors is minimum. It's 1 or 2 corrections in terms of quantity or details that they need to enter, but all the information is preloaded in the system, and inspectors just click to accept. All the processes are the same in our platform. We do not distinguish if it is a handwritten signature, if it's a QR code, if it's electronic certificate. It's a single platform. It's the same process, and the difference is that printing. Inspectors know which documents need to be printed for signatures, and if there's a different road to take. But the process is basically the same. When they click accept in the platform, we create the XML documents. The difference here is that when the electronic certificate, the exporters are going to receive an email. They receive a control copy of the phytosanitary certificate with the information of the number to have traceability, to have the possibility to track this document. As I said before, we have a contingency plan. It's a public query, so anyone with the document number can query and check if there is any failure in the system. So the fast way to check for the authenticity of the document. In terms of imports, we had parameters in our system. Users need to enter, they have to complete a form, and they are asked 2 questions: the certificate number and the date of issuance. With these details, the system can capture the PDF for the inspector to view it at the moment of inspection. The only rule is that the certificate needs to be written, it has to be well written. We have users with alphanumerical documents. Letters are the same, so they opt to write the final numbers, and we needed for them to complete all the numbers for the system to capture and retrieve the document and give it to the inspector. And inspectors do not need to enter anywhere else. They have a query module. What we do is automatically when they enter and they see the inspection request, the PDF is already there. As for the challenges that we have, resources, as I said before, we had to ensure the resources. It was difficult for us. We have to ensure that resources are annual. The contracting processes in Colombia, we cannot have future projects. So this is for 1 year. So we have to be clear that in January we're going to have the certification of signatures. So it's a process that seems to be completed. As for export, we are working on this. It is not automated yet. It is not 100% automated. So the job that we're going to do now is to strengthen with the Global Alliance. So we hope that this year we can have this ready to remove paper, to go paperless, to integrate more countries as well. We established contact with other countries. For some reasons, we could not continue but with the acquisition of resources and we will resume those contacts and establish new contacts for implementation. All the work with the Global Alliance, that's the challenge that we have. It's a hope for us to strengthen our system and something that the AICA is working on. Tell you about this. We are working on the electronic sanitary certification for live animals and animal products. So these are the contact details. Engineer Wilken Ramirez, he's the leader of this process, and my name as well, and my contact details. Thank you very much. Thank you, Alejandra. So any question for her? Is there any question that you would like to ask? Rodrigo? For the maybe you can introduce yourself and Rodrigo, we know you, so it's not necessary. Good morning, everyone. I have 3 questions, Ale. The first one is, you mentioned only France. They have been exchanging certificates. Is there any other country that you're currently operated through the hub? The second one, do you have the number of certificates that you have exchanged in this last year in the operation with France? And the third question is to ask you, in terms of exports with the European Union, I understand that all the countries use traces to receive certificates, and the reason why you are only operating with France is only based on resources, or is it a strategic decision? It's the main destination in the European Union for you. As for the European Union, it was only a matter of resources. There was a different process for different countries. We worked with Helen, and we worked on the validations, and they authorized for us to issue documents in May last year. We had a first contact with France, thanks to Rodrigo. He made a contact with France because we didn't have many signatures and seals. We did not have many seals, and France is not a big destination. Maybe it's not as big as other countries in the European Union. We replaced many documents. Exports of flowers led to many replacements, so we needed to think of other documents that we did not know at the time. So we needed to start with France. And the idea is to start working with other countries. We have received 500 certificates, and we have issued around 3,000 certificates to France in terms of considering also the replacements. And I don't remember the first question. What was it? No, we do not have any country. We have the contact with the Netherlands to resume work with them. We have started talking to them to start working with them, and I have the contact details, and we're starting communications with them to see how we can start working. We acquired resources just now, so we had to send the European Union all the documents again for validation and for their acceptance, the annual acceptance of the process. Hello, good morning. My name is Matia Gutera, Senasa, Argentina. My question has to do with the following. How complex was it for you to work with 3 projects, parallel projects, for the exchange of certificates? They are interrelated with CISPAP. And what advantages are there in your case, in your experience? When we started the hub, we had finished with the Alliance. With hub, we had very good results. Few months since we started the initiative, everything was assembled. It was put together. So we had the experience of the alliance. We always had the same developer, the same person who assembled everything, put everything up, was the same one. So he had the experience. We evolved quite a lot with Hub. It was a very fast process. And Intercom, we're starting. We're just starting. So the alliance and the Hub experience have helped us a lot with Intercom. And Intercom is using many parameters from Hub. So we do not have a different universe. So it has helped us to work in the 3 projects. But we did not work with them at the same time. So we finished one and then started the other.
Another question for you, Craig from the IPPC. Are you going to connect? Is your connection going to be with the Dutch? Is your connection going to be through traces? I hope.
Yes, it's going to be through traces. I would like to complement something. I think that the key is that the Pacific Alliance, we use the same schema, the XML scheme that is recommended by the IPPC. And therefore, it's a transmission medium, the same mapped scheme, and the countries in the alliance can receive that in the system as we received from the hub, so we can use them and translate it to the mediums that are used by our inspectors. Thank you. Hello, Julieta Sousa from Uruguay, and I would like to ask Alejandra. I understand that CISPAP was a system that you already had implemented, and it required a development process, an adaptation process to integrate with all these programs, above all with Hub. So how was this process to develop this? Do you have an own development for the system? And how was this adaptation in general, but particularly with the Hub? The resources for the entire system are our own, from the AICA, but we also subcontract. We have a contract with an external company. We had the opportunity in Colombia. We had to have tenders, bids, so many companies proposed their offers. We had a process. So the same company actually could give continuity to this work, and that's the way we did it. The adjustments were not so major, not so big. It has to do with the treatment. So we had a general text for the treatment. So you need to have the active ingredient, the temperature, the information, the hours. So we had to start opening up those boxes. The products, the presentations, for us, it was only one text. So we had to refer to presentation, to product. So it's more work connected to do the revisions, to open the processes, to do the tests. But it wasn't so big because we were capturing all this information in the system. We had the declarations, which were separated. The boxes were completely separated. The countries were identified. So we had to come up with codes because we did not have codes for many products or many treatments. So that was the work that we had to do because the platform already captured all the information. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Now let's continue. For those of you who would like the translation, you need to get the receivers. I cannot use it because I'm here, but those of you who can, please, you can get your receivers. Okay, let's move on, and now I'm going to invite Camila Rodriguez Acevedo from Phytosanitary Certification and Single Windows of the Ministry of Agriculture from Cuba. Bueno, good morning to all of you. My name is Camila. I'm from the Plant Protection Directorate of the Ministry of Agriculture from Cuba, and I would like to thank you for the invitation and for allowing us to be here and to find out about your experience and to see the knowledge that you have about this area. Cuba currently has not implemented an electronic phytosanitary certificate yet. We're issuing the same certificates in paper, printed paper, where we have 3 sheets, handwritten sheets, or printed, but many of the boxes are completed by hand, by the inspectors. We have an original and 2 copies. We have an attached page, and depending on the product or additional declarations, as you can see on the screen, that's the original and the 2 copies. So we're still using this system. It's becoming quite difficult for us because of the paper, etc. But the inspectors need a process, printing paper. It's not the same as doing things by hand, and most of them are still completing things by hand. To tell you about the current situation in Cuba is that we still do not have the implementation of the electronic certification system. As I said before, we do not have a process to create the necessary platforms, the necessary systems, so that we can implement an e-Phyto system or to connect to the hub or to do it in any other way so that we can start with electronic certification. We are currently implemented a foreign trade single window, VUSE, which is in the testing phase. So we are already closer to digitalizing processes in this electronic single window. We are only going to exchange, we're only going to do this for the phytosanitary permits. We're not going to include the certificates yet. It's going to be only for permits. But we're almost ready to do this and to start setting this up. The idea is to integrate electronic certification to this foreign trade single window. And as regards electronic signatures, we have no problems with that. We would have problems only with the certification of these signatures, but to implement it and for our inspectors to get it, it's not going to be a problem for us. Next slide, please. Within the obstacles that we have for implementation, we have identified the financial amounts for the acquisition of the necessary resources. We have a plan where we have identified all the resources that we need, but we're assessing the different funding resources so that we can move forward with this. But we should make it clear that the previous experience that we had when we started to become interested, not interested, to try to start with the e-Phyto process was in the first workshop that was held where Cuba was present. Then we went through a complicated process after the workshop. The pandemic appeared. Cuba was very affected by it. So this was stopped, it was halted for some time. And now we're starting from scratch, practically. So once that we have assessed this whole process, we have updated it very recently, and we're trying to create the necessary infrastructure. The main deficiency that we have is the knowledge of the communication and information technologies of our inspectors. As you know, and yesterday we are talking about XML formats and all these things. People look at us and they do not know what it is because the IT knowledge is insufficient. So we do not have, in part, with the people to be able to train staff because we have to be trained in this area as well. We do not have a technical infrastructure to access the hub. We do not have it. So the speed of the internet affects us quite a lot in our capacity and also to be able to integrate in the points where we have the quarantine and when we have our inspectors, we do not have the internet speed or the necessary resources to do this. As for the perspectives that Cuba has, there's the link to the foreign trade single window with this electronic certification system. That is what we are thinking about. Once we start testing this foreign trade single window to start relations with other countries. So, well, started integrating electronic certification into this single window. As for the Directorate of Plant Health, we acknowledge the importance of electronic certification, given the rapid advancement of certificates, the need to go paperless. This is very significant to us today, and considering the development, we have to keep this as a priority. It is a priority for us. We're going to try to continue working with the limitations, with the constraints that we have. So that would be all. Thank you very much. Hello. So any questions? Camila, we need you here. So the people on Zoom can see you. Rodrigo, go ahead. A question and then a clarification as well. First, the clarification. I am excited to hear you. The first contact with electronic certification was in the workshop that we held in 2018. That was the objective of the workshop. We have a concrete case with Costa Rica. After the workshop, they got to their country and they said, we're not that far away from electronic certification. And that was one of the first countries with which we started exchanging. So what you have just said makes me feel really proud. Apart from what you said, this was the greatest part of your presentation, and I truly appreciate it. So the question now is, I don't know if you have the answer, but you were saying about linking the single window with the electronic certification. When do you think that this will happen? By the end of the year? By the end of next year? The single window as such is working. We hope that it will work by mid-year, and then we will start integrating this with electronic certification. It's a process that is new to Cuba, including the single window. So as you know, each system, once it is set up and it starts working, then you have the deficiencies, the problems. So we are waiting for that. I wouldn't like to have a deadline for it, but we would like by next year, the early next year, to know, to start integrating the process. It is valid to ask help from all of you. That's why we are here today. And please help us and supervise our work when we start doing this and help us out. Thank you. Of course, Argentina fully supports Cuba in everything that you may need. Good morning, Ruben Serracin from Panama. Very nice to meet you. I'm not sure I understood correctly with the development of single windows. The certification of the electronic phytosanitary certification would be through an own system. Was that correct? But seeing the constraints that Cuba has in terms of internet speed and all the situations that you described, it would be good for you to consider the use of the GENS, the genetic system. It is part of the e-Phyto solution of the convention. I am telling you this because you will see this. We use it. We use the genetic system And the genetic system, known as genes, has the characteristic that it is designed precisely to work at a low speed, internet speed. So it has many qualities to withdraw, to replace certificates. This is a very common situation. So that has been designed. That is in the system. So this is my suggestion. It's just an idea for you to consider, and it's free. It's free of charge. Well, maybe later on the IPPC will bill this for us, but not yet. Thank you very much. Precisely, we are here to do this, to take your experience and to see what is best for us. What happens to us is that in Cuba, inspectors were not interested in having internet access, so it was not a priority for them. Cuba now, there's only the speed exists, so we will have to take it to those points, because in the past this was not something that was considered a priority, but we will consider all this when we get home and we analyze all the possible variables. No questions? No other questions? Craig?
Yeah, I also would like to say that it's sin problema per gens per Cuba es muy fácil and we're not charging now, and I don't want to charge. I want FAO to pay for it, but that's my personal opinion. But I would echo the comment that gens is very easy to get started with. If you want to do something muy rápido, if you want to do something quickly, we can help you with that. Very happy to help with that. Sí, yo.
Sí, yes, we're going to consider that. As I said before, we're testing, and thanks for your clarification. We are learning. So we're going to review all this. We're taking a lot of information home. The most important thing is that we're here to learn. We are learning a lot. So we're going to start with this. I think that the main aspect is to be willing to do this, to be enthusiastic, to be willing to learn from all of you. Hello? I would like to tell you, I think that the most important thing is the willingness, the enthusiasm. The GENS solution is working very well. The work that we did with Panama and with the Dominican Republic, it was a record time, 2 months only, maybe 2 months. And Panama, since it took the decision and made the contacts with the team who is available at the FAO in terms of IT, this makes the work really easy. There is training. And GSB with Stephanie, there has been work done to share the experiences of the Dominican Republic and Panama in terms of how they did this, how they trained inspectors, and all the job that Ruben has done. So in Panama, this has been really significant. Stephanie said that Cuba could participate in this group to have this discussion, to cooperate with GSP. So welcome. Cuba will be able to integrate into e-Phyto soon enough. Thank you very much. We're going to make that contact. We're going to request those contacts and to ask for your help. Any help is welcome in terms of training, especially, because that's what we need the most. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Camila. Okay, so let us move on. I would like to invite David Pello Cepeda. He's a phytosanitary certification analyst, and Milton Germán Nivelo Molina. He's an application development and maintenance specialist of the Plant Protection and Animal Health Regulation and Control Agency from Ecuador. I am David Tello. Good morning. I work from the Plant Protection and Animal Health Regulation and Control Agency. Thanks to COSAVE, Argentina, for welcoming here us. I'm going to explain what the situation is like in Ecuador. Since 2014, we have had a national system that was developed that is the unified system. We have tried to develop a new module to issue phytosanitary certificates, and we also have the e-Phyto development there. We have tried for this new module to adapt to the logistics of our export products, for us to be easy to request and to manage the phytosanitary certificates. That's why we have done this for 3 types of products. Our star products, Niseishi, ornamental, cut flowers, and other products, with a view to going paperless, to have an online certification with a QR code or through the web. We also developed an electronic exchange program. We have conducted tests with Argentina, Chile, with the US, with the Netherlands, Morocco, and Senegal. These were hub tests. Our system is very simple for our users. Before requesting a phytosanitary certificate, the requirements have to be uploaded by country, by product. The production sites, the stock sites, and exporters need to be uploaded. We feed our database with other records from other institutions, such as the Ministry of Agriculture or the single windows from Ecuador. A function of our system is that users can also pay for the service automatically through the system, for our system to validate data, to reduce the workload of our technicians. Our system also gives the possibility to enter results of inspections and to authorize the issuance of phytosanitary certificates. So this results in the electronic phytosanitary certificate. It's a digital certificate with electronic signature, and the verification is online through the web. We are taking the idea of certification to the paperless concept. We have had obstacles on the way. We have been doing this since 2018 based on the previous workshop. It has been complex because I'm sure that most of us have had problems with resources, human talent, the developers of the system, and also infrastructure as regards IT. The lack of acceptance by our own technicians to make this change from a manual issuance to an electronic issuance, and acceptance of our users is rather complex. An exporter or a user, it's difficult to accept something that he or she cannot touch, a paper. So for them, it's more legal. That's the idea that our users have there. So in addition to the number of certificates that we have, this has turned the development of the system very complex, has taken longer than we expected to develop the system. As regards the expectations for the issue of electronic certificates, as they become faster, more efficient, with the support of the Global Alliance, we had 2 case studies in Ecuador for 2 specific products, which is the banana and cut flowers. We try to analyze what benefits the electronic certificate would have for these two products. This resulted in a reduction of time of issuing the phytosanitary certificate in 50%. In the case of the banana, we decreased the issuance of certificates from 2 days to 3 hours, and in the case of cut flowers, from 3 hours to 30 minutes. As regards costs, our users, our exporters, were going to save almost $5 million only considering the issuance of electronic certificate, the use of paper, the use of specific staff that is required to issue or to request the phytosanitary certificates, the transfer of the staff, the transport, and many other items that were considered and studied, which resulted on this, that in these two lines, in these two areas, we could save $5 million a year. And in the most specific cases, the personal interaction, person to person, this would a reduction of 1 between the user and the technician. So we developed a roadmap for the electronics phytosanitary certificate. We are in a first stage, and we're going to create the phytosanitary certificates for our star product, the banana, or the Chile as the destination. So I would like to thank here Rodrigo Robles for his great help and the SAG people for their support. We're working on the certificate. We hope that this month or May maximum we can exchange the e-Phytos on a paperless basis. In a second phase, we're going to open up other countries with our star product, bananas. And in the third phase, we're going to open up this for all products, all destinations except for cut flowers, because cut flowers for us has a problem, well, not a problem, an inconvenience. That is, we issue many phytosanitary certificates, so the system has to be stable, correctly structured, so that we can start to make an improvement that we call for massive. This is the word that we use, so that they can request for 20, 30, 40 phytosanitary certificates at the same time with only one delivery of information. That is the reason why cut flowers are left for the end. We will have the option of issuing manual certificates if the country of destination decides so. If not, we would have the digital certificate with an electronic signature or e-Phyto. For us, in the year 2024, by mid-2024, to arrive at a paperless phytosanitary certification, and we're going to work also for the reissuance of certificates. So this is the situation in Ecuador. So I'm going to ask you to be patient with us, and I'm going to bother you, I don't know if personally to all of you, to help us with this development. We're going to knock on your doors so that we can start with the exchange of phytosanitary certificates. Here you can see my contact, agroquality. In Ecuador, you can write to us. We're going to need a lot of help, a lot of patience on your side so that we can start exchanging the paperless certificates. So that's what we are aiming at. So thank you very much. Thank you, David. If you could please stay here for a moment. We're going to open up the floor for questions. Does anyone have any questions? He was saved. David was saved. Well, thank you. Now I would like to invite Engineer Carmen Estrada from the Plant Health Directorate, Phytosanitary Certification of the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Food from Guatemala. Thank you. Good morning to all of you. I would like to thank for the invitation to the Ministry of Agriculture of Guatemala to be able to participate in the workshop, and also on behalf of Engineer Jorge Gomez, our director. In case of the implementation of the e-Phyto system or the electronic certification, let's go to the following slide. Currently, we're issue certificates through the GENS, but from last year onwards as a ministry, we created our own platform, national platform, to issue electronic certificates, which is known as Management System for Imports and Exports, see here, that's the acronym. And in this platform, we issue any official document in the case of imports and exports. So not only for the plant area, but also for the animal area. This project, the case of the e-Phyto system, we had a participation of Guatemala, and other engineer was present at that time, and the implementation started first with the European Union. In the case of the European Union, we had some problems because we had to use the e-Phyto, but in our case, when the way they got it, they did not accept it because we were missing a digital signature. So after that, we started to do all the procedure, all the communications with France. And after that, France opened the doors for us. And this opened the doors for all the other countries of the European Union. But the first one, with which we also issued certificates, was the United States, which is the biggest trading partner for us. And with Korea, we performed the tests, but we have not received any answers as regards to how our process is doing. And in the case of electronic certification, as I said before, we're using e-Phyto, or we're using CHIE, but in the case of Korea and the United Kingdom, they did not accept any kind of electronic certification, so they have sent us a communication where it says that they need the paper certificate. Currently, these are the countries where we exchange electronically, 33 countries, all the countries of the European Union, the United States, Mexico, Costa Rica, Panama, and Argentina. I wanted to show you a history of the phytosanitary certificate data. In the year 2016, 2017, 2018, up to the year 2022, we have a registration of all the certificates issued through our national platform, see here, and e-Phyto as well. And we can see that we are in the process of implementing it because, as many of the speakers mentioned, many exporters have this inconvenience that they do not know or they cannot interpret English. So this has been a big obstacle because our inspectors on the border, many of the certificates are issued there because we do not have established that only in the singles windows can be issued, but also on the border, so they do not know English. And this has been a significant obstacle for implementation. And in the case of CIGIE, as I said before, and this was Ecuador speaker mentioned, we had the problem that people or the exporters first did not accept the electronic certificate because they didn't think it was valid. But right now, we are implementing this because, as Cuba mentioned as well, there is not much paper available, so we have to start forcing them to accept electronic certification. In the case of the need to move forward with the e-Phyto implementation, we would like to manage the certificates through the hub. And as many countries mentioned, if you could please help us, or the countries who have done this before, this sort of connection would be very, very beneficial for us, because as we are using, as I said before, 3 types of platforms to issue electronic certificates, so the exporters get confused a little bit. So we would like to be able to use only one system to generate the electronic certificates. And also, in the case, I don't know if anyone has had an experience with Asian countries or African countries, because we export grains and seeds to those countries. So we have tried to communicate officially with them, and we haven't been successful. We have had no answer. And as for concerns, we wondered how much using the e-Phyto without the FAO subsidies would cost. So Stephanie talked about this. So this was a doubt that we had, how much it would cost to use this platform. And then what would happen if a country cannot pay for the platform? So then again, that was a very short presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you, Carmen. Please stay here. If you have any question. Great. There you go.
Hola, Carmen.
My question? Maybe you can answer the question, but I would like other countries to tell me as well how you could solve this. The list of countries with which you're exchanging, you mentioned Mexico. We conducted tests with Mexico. We have an adapted system. e-Phyto is transmitted. The decoding is correct as well. But before implementing, they told us that as for imports, the intervention was divided for Senacica and for forestry products. There was another agency that was not connected to the hub. So that's why we stopped. We do not have a way today to partialize the certification or to divide this transmission. Is it either paperless or not? And it would be difficult for inspectors when to print or not to print. So I would like you to tell me how you did this. Perhaps you have solved this because you do not export these products in particular. So I would like to hear from you. What you were saying, in Guatemala, we do not export forestry products. So we only export wood, and we have issued certificates for that country, and there haven't been any problems.
Craig from IPPC. I just wanted to make one point, kind of a strong point. I just wanted to make one strong point in terms of, participation in the e-Phyto hub and be it either national system or the gens. It's my commitment that, ever a country will never be kicked off the system if in fact we ever get to the point where countries are requested to pay something to sustain the system. That's a commitment I made, and I just want to make that clear for everybody that it's so out of the norm of the goals and objectives of the United Nations that I can't believe that we would shut a country down for not being able to pay. So if any country here is concerned about that, don't worry about it, because that would just be contrary to the spirit of the United Nations. So again, my personal preference is that it comes out of a regular fund from FAO. It's not up to me to make that decision, but I just wanted to make that clear. So don't worry about being kicked off. Any country here, don't worry about being kicked off with the e-Phyto solution. It's not going to happen, at least as long as I'm around and a few others who follow on.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate, in the case of Guatemala, if any country wants to transmit certificates with Guatemala, we are open to receive communications from any country. Okay, let us move on. I would like to invite Dr. Orlin Ramirez Alvarado. He's the Technical Director of Agriculture Quarantine of the National Health and Agri-Food Safety Service of Honduras. Thank you, Rafael. Good morning to all of you. Good morning to all of you. Thanks to Socosave, Senasa for their invitation. My name is Orlin Ramirez. I'm the Technical Director of Agriculture and Quarantine from Senasa in Honduras. I'm going to tell you about the experience. I'm going to be honest. We do not have any exchanges of electronic certificates with any of the countries. We have had talks with Chile and the United States and Costa Rica to be able to integrate this. But I'm going to share my experience of how we have reached the point that we have our own system to be able to complete this process. So Rodrigo visited our country in 2014, but there's going to be a difference between 2014 and the present date. In 2014, everything was paper, imports and exports, and today we have managed to develop an own system to be able to complete this process. Okay, so this is our legal framework of the institution. I'm going to give you an overview. The Executive Decree number 1994 makes the SENASA structure change completely. We have 3 directorates that had been created by law, animal health, plant health, and safety, but we saw that the process was within the framework of creating another directorate as the Agricultural Quarantine Directorate, and that led to the quarantine processes to be within the agency that I lead in the institution. So that has allowed us to have greater operability. This is our country. We had borders with Nicaragua and El Salvador, Guatemala, and we have contacts with North America as well and Europe. And in this context, from 2018 to present date, we have been a part of the facilitation, trade facilitation agency. We have had some strategic results. We have conducted within these electronic or quarantine processes. Our objective is to reduce the operation time and costs, and that has led us to design how we would do what we would have to do to make our country competitive. So we started with a development process to be able to develop the import processes. We have been able to have complete import modules that led to a 97% reduction in the response time for users and also at the border. And that development started in 2018. We finished last year in December. That was the last module that was launched of the process that we conducted. We have over 11,000 importers in the system. They are registered in the system, and we have over 80,000 phytosanitary certificates and also import permits. With the previous system, we used to have an average response time of up to 5 days, and that is now 3 hours. So our baseline is at 5 days with the medium time. So that was a process for authorization. That was a lot of money, a lot of time for companies, many resources that were spent, much paper to be used. So that led us to better results. As regards export from the year 2019, also for plant health, they were the first ones that boosted the electronic certification processes. Then, of course, the animal health area followed, and that has reduced the response time by 5 hours top. Our system is linked. We have more than 850 registered exporters in our exporting system for all this kind of process, and we have issued about 6,000 transactions for all the process where we have implemented our own system. So we have reduced in 90% the time for the goods release when we have export processes. Another process that is being conducted nowadays is the integration between SENASA and customs. As a country, we did not have this integration between SENASA, customs, and the other entities included in the border posts, but right now we have been able to do this. That is, all the transactions that we do can be seen by customs, and the transactions by customs can be seen by us. From a quarantine perspective, this has allowed us as well to reduce goods dispatch or shipping times in a country, and we have analyzed the savings in the private sector as regards this kind of process, and this is about over 10.7 million US dollars with integration between customs and SENASA as such. Another factor where we have moved forward is that our payment systems could be modernized during this time, and the private and national banking is integrated. So the users and the operations can pay electronically. We use a very interesting mechanism to pay through a form that is standardized by the government. And with this, we have been able to have all these transactions electronically. It helps a lot. It's safer. It has greater traceability in the process and allows us to return quickly in our organizations. It's paid through the Treasury of the Republic, and our institutions have been able to improve all these processes. We have become more agile. Everything has been streamlined. We have other processes. We have our quarantine service that is delegated to OIRSA. So we have been developing a process that allows for the integration of our system with their system so that this operation can be more agile. And our purpose, our aim of being here, as our colleagues mentioned, is that our steps are here to be able to integrate in e-Phyto. We have been talking to Chile, to the United States, to Costa Rica, to be able to integrate. We believe that our system can be integrated easily. Our IT experts and our system has been in a stage. I'm a web service. I'm a veterinarian, so I'm not very familiar with this, but they say that this can be integrated to e-Phyto. So from that perspective, we have good possibilities to do this in a short period of time. We think that Chile may be the first country in 2 or 3 months top, so that we can start exchanging electronic certificates with them. I wanted to share this with you. This is just a small presentation, so thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Olin. Any questions? Olin? Olin, you were saved. No questions for you. No, Orlin, sorry, you were not saved. Come back to the stage. My question is not connected to electronic certification per se. That's why I wanted to see if there was any other question. But if there are no questions, I would like to say something. When you mentioned the collection for the kind of exports, that it was the tariffs, what services are charged to the users in an export? For example, we charge for the issuance of certificate, and we have a fee for tons of products depending on the categories of risk for the product. How do you do this? It's very similar. We charge for the issuance of the certificate, the inspection, the volume of exports too. The detail that we have is that we have a very interesting collection system. Interesting because I had the chance of taking part of this development process. So this is paid through a form that is called TGR1, Treasury Form 1. So all the public services are paid through this form, not with direct transaction with the bank, but it can be tied with the private banking. To be honest, there are 10 to 12 private banks at the national level. We were able to do this so that TGR1, which is electronic right now, can be linked to the payment made by the user, so that it becomes liquid and it can come back to the institution. It's a complex mechanism, but to provide transparency, it's better. There's no direct transaction, like buying something and will pay it directly. No, it has to be done through a format provided by the government, and this allowed us to design this system. It's one of the first institutions that created this link with the private banking to be able to collect the return of these services. We have many services, about 850 services, the correct fees, and that is what we collect, what we charge through these forms. Those collections for exports have to be paid in advance. Yes, of course. They are tied in advance. We cannot give them credit. They have to pay for the service, of course, like everything. It's not like the electricity bill. No. You have to pay them and then continue with the process. Otherwise, you cannot move forward in the system. You cannot advance. And that's why we decided to work with these electronic processes, because there are consequences. So it's better and it's more transparent this way. And if the systems block, yes, they do. So the system doesn't allow you to continue exactly. And the criteria are not subjective, they're objective. So the system has parameters so that you can develop the processes. So there is absolutely no problem about this. Thank you, Olin. I would like to invite now Engineer Jairo José Flores Miranda, Director of Agricultural Quarantine of the Agricultural Protection and Health Institute of Nicaragua. Good morning to all of you. I'm the Executive Director of the Agricultural Protection and Health Institute of Nicaragua. We would like to thank the invitation to this major workshop. I am the Director of Agricultural Quarantine, and Maradiaga, he's the Director of Plant Health in Nicaragua. Our legal framework That was the creation of the agricultural protection and health. This is law 862. We have new laws in the region. This is 1020. That is a phytosanitary protection law in Nicaragua. Then law 291, law 274, law 288. So rules, procedures, standards, resolutions, manuals. Sorry, I cannot hear. Sorry, we have a mission, we have a vision to facilitate trade and to ensure the phytosanitary protection. We are committed to trade facilitation at an international level. We have 17 departments in the country with 17 delegations in each department where we are present as an institution of plant health. This gives us a coverage at the national level to be able to ensure exports and our product certifications in any part of the region where we have a lot of agricultural production. We also have we can see the Republic of Nicaragua. We have 12 quarantine posts, and they are at airports, borders, ports. We have an internal station that is called an internal quarantine station. In this station, we ensure exports of products at a single point, and they go to the north of the country through two borders with Honduras, that is Las Manos, or Espínola, that it allows us to centralize our exports in one point to minimize the clearance times. Within the achievements that we have attained, Nicaragua has adopted international standards and complying with the demands of competent health authorities in terms of health and phytosanitary conditions. We have a duty to protect the agricultural wealth of our country. We have a system, we have equivalent systems, the European Union, Mexico, the US, China, and Central America. We have implemented an inspection system under official controls, strengthening the commercial exchange and opening up new markets. Nicaragua, we are members of the IPPC and a member of the OIE, and Nicaragua, as we request an evaluation of the phytosanitary capacity with the new system, and we have been able to pass 11 of the capacity that were assessed. There are 13. 2 of them were not applicable to Nicaragua, and as a result, we had successes in our system. So there were some weaknesses. For example, the law that we used to have. That is why I told you about the modernization of Law 1020. That was a consequence of the assessment that we have. We have other laws that are in process of being approved. That is the safety, animal health law, and the seed law as well. We are a country that we have maintained the status. We had a negligible risk of ESB, and this our meat products, our beef products that are exported are accepted in the international market. We are free of FMD without vaccination. That makes it easier for markets to be opened. The main sectors for export that we have, there's fisheries, beef, meat, vegetables. We have dairy products as well, honey and poultry. We also have trade with the European Union for live and exotic animals with Germany, Canada, and part of the European Union as well. What are the challenges that we have? Within the phytosanitary protection, we're implementing a canine school, a dog school. We have 60 or 65% of progress of the construction of this school. This will allow the phytosanitary protection of our country, and this is related to the acceptance of our export products. We have reopened exports of fishery products to the European Union. As I said before, we have the approval for this year of Agri-Food Safety and Animal Health and Seed Act. One of the challenges that we have, that's why we're here today, it's the implementation of e-Phyto for the exchange of international phytosanitary certificates at airports, borders, and ports. There you can see the progress made of the canine school. Actually, one of the commitments of our government, led by Commander Daniel and Rosario, was the trade facilitation. At present, this is not in the presentation. I don't know why it's not there, but we have implemented WUSEN. That has been implemented. We're going to have exchange of phytosanitary certificate and import permits through the Central American system that is in our Central American region. We're going to have an exchange of documents in our government institutions, the customs office, to minimize the clearance time and to facilitate trade. This is going to be done electronically. It is being done electronically. Users will not need to get somewhere and to stand in line, but they can be at home and they can make a request. They can request for permits. They can pay online. They can pay online through private banks. It's the single window. We can provide certificates for goods, either quarantine or not quarantine products, any products. They can do this through the single window. We have the Customs Office, the Ministry of Health, to approve the relevant permits. We have communications. We have also the port authorities, the national commissions of narcotics, and so all these agencies are within this single window of WUSE in Spanish. This will facilitate international trade. This is a measure that was adopted recently, but we also want to, we are committed, we have the challenge to join e-Phyto to be able to electronically exchange certificates through the IPPC. So thank you very much. So that would be the presentation that we have as a country. I don't know if you have any questions.
Rodrigo?
Rodrigo, do you have any questions?
I wanted to ask if you're going to operate through the generic system or a known system. But you answered this with the single windows. Yes, exactly. Okay, so if there is no other questions, thank you very much for your time and for your attention. Thank you, Jairo. Okay, let's move on. Now I'd like to invite Engineer Rubén Sarracín, Head of Phytosanitary Certification System of the Ministry of Agriculture Development of Panama. Good morning to all of you. Thank you for all the people who are here. We are tired of seeing each other through virtual platforms. In many cases, we did not know each other, and during these times, pandemic times, we have been interacting quite a lot through these virtual platforms, so it's good to be here face to face. So we are responsible for the phytosanitary certification system in the Republic of Panama, and as part of this, we had to take that step towards the implementation of phytosanitary certification, electronic phytosanitary certification. This is a map that was mentioned yesterday that is very good for marketing purposes, and quite frequently we consult this map to see what new countries have joined, have connected. Panama, in our case, we are connected to the e-Phyto hub since April 2021. Our history is very recent. We are one of the 46 countries that use the generic system of the e-Phyto solution, and we have had very good experiences with this system. And we also participated from the workshop that was held here in Buenos Aires in 2018. And at that time, in the year 2018, we were about to launch the system for electronic certification issuance, our own system, but being here, we realized that one of the preconditions to connect to the hub was to do this in an XML format. The system at that time, 2018, remember, did not have this characteristic, so we had to make an investment to change this. And the IT person working with me said, oh, this is great, we can do this. But, well, then the pandemic happened and we made some contacts. Walter, Dr. Christian Delis, and they said, your solution is okay. So having this in mind, we decided to, Walter helps us a lot with this, giving us support and guidance as to what a country needs if it wants to implement the gens. It was very easy, to be honest, with a lot of support and help. This is an experience for all those countries that have not connected to the system yet. In the American continent, we have this, a lot of experience in this, and that is at our hands. It's very accessible. We have a horizontal cooperation, and this is how we started using gens in April 2021. Let's see. Yes, here we are. In April 2021, we were already registered in the national generic systems of the e-Phyto solution. And by April the 15th, 2021, 4 months and a half later, we had started the phytosanitary certification, the electronic certification with the United States. This was the 15th of September. Up to this, in this first group, we started adding Chile, with the intervention of Rodrigo Robles, Guatemala, and Costa Rica. Costa Rica is our neighbor. It's a natural trading partner for us. So after this 15th of September of 2021, we added these 4 countries. Then we continued moving forward. And once we were in production, this was in the year 2021, we issued phytosanitary certificates through the GENS to the European Union, which is another very important trading partner for Panama. And as it was explained here, Dr. Helen Klein, because of their own legislation, the European Union requires those certificates to be recognized digitally. That implies a process. It was quite a process for us. And finally, on the 14th of November of last year, we were able to be recognized for the 27 countries of the European Union, in addition to Switzerland and Northern Ireland. So it's 27 plus 2. That's the name we give it. So currently, we are exchanging electronic phytosanitary certificates through the hub with 33 countries. Some countries, above all in our continent, where we have made requests, and we understand we're going to have the chance, the opportunity to have binational meetings and to move forward in this situation and to continue adding more countries to this paperless exchange. I forgot to mention that as a result of that instability in IT developments that we have experienced in the last few years, we are using, I don't know if Craig is here. No, there you are, Craig. You said that you're not going to charge anything for using the GEN, so I'm relaxed about that because, well, we are taking advantage of the versatility of the system in the sense that the system, the GENS, allows to send and to generate phytosanitary certificates, but also allows to print the phytosanitary certificates in a PDF format with a QR code. So we said, okay, if we are here, let's go in that direction. Let's start using GENS. And the 2 lines that you can see there, the one on the top, the blue line, is the total phytosanitary certificates issued last year. And the red line, the one below, is the one that accounts for all the phytosanitary certificates through GENS, regardless of the fact of whether they are electronic or paper. So you can see a big difference, especially in March to June. And that has an explanation. That difference became shorter as the months went by. And we're satisfied about this because we got to the end of the year 2022. We generated through GENS about 45% of all phytosanitary certificates in Panama. And that's important for us. But this is the behavior by March 2023, January to March, so it's a quarter. And it's encouraging for us. We have made some changes. Other countries that last year were not connected through the generic system, at the end of last year or this year, connected to it, like the case of India, which is an important trading partner for us. So practically 95% of all phytosanitary certificates that we have handled this year are in GENS. So This is a step forward that is really, really encouraging for us. This is the last year. Oh, some data just moved on the slide, but it's important to see that for last year, we said that the United States, Costa Rica, and the European Union are countries to which Panama is issuing electronic certificates, paperless, so that by last year, over 45% of all those phytosanitary certificates from Panama had this recognition. And last year, we said that India connected the hub. I think that in November, if I'm not wrong, or December last year. So we had a pilot plan with the participation of phytosanitary certification for those countries was just starting, about 7%. Now we can see how it changed in this year. Okay. Well, another problem, technical difficulty there with the labels, with the information. The biggest slice of the cake in yellow or a greenish yellow is India. So that is about 54% of all phytosanitary certificates that we issue. We are exporters, just like Ecuador and Costa Rica and other countries in the region, of wood, teca wood from plantations, and about 99% have the destination of India. India is connected to the hub. It is receiving our phytosanitary certificate, and we are receiving the phytosanitary certificates that they issue. What we're not receiving from India is an answer to 3 communications that we have sent this year, and the communication is a little bit complicated, just like our colleague Carmen from Guatemala mentioned with Asian countries. But we keep this 11% for Costa Rica, 9% for the European Union, that's 20, and about 13%, with 33, 35%. That percentage is kept. These are fully electronic certificates issued by Panama, so Panama does not need to issue any paper certificate. This is the reality that we're facing nowadays. The gens to keep moving forward. We are proud users of the gens. It's a really friendly platform, as we say in Panama. The users, the external users who see this platform buy it. It has been more difficult for us, for our technicians to adopt it. And if it's in English, then it's another more argument to stay behind, to lag. So the translation into Spanish is very important. Luckily, NAPO, if I understood correctly, offered yesterday to do that. That's great, to keep moving forward. Logically, our main objective as a transit country is to continue adding countries to this paperless movement, and we believe that we need to start with the countries from the continent. Perhaps we have contacts, pending contacts with some countries in the continent to see how we can realize these agreements. It has to be very clear that we need efficient mechanisms for these agreements. So I think that we can migrate then to the outside of the continent. Isaac from Chile yesterday said that he had talked to India. Rodrigo, I also hope that somehow we can form a partnership there, an alliance. So there is another country in the continent that has written to you, that has made a request, and we can become stronger together and to pull this through, because that it's 54%. It's a huge amount of our export that goes to that country that are being processed through gens. So we would need that little push. And adding India, we would be above 80% of all electronic phytosanitary certificates. So that would be a huge success for us. We heard Dr. Helen Klein making reference to regulations of the European Union because of the demands of the digital signatures. So I don't know if the IPPC could intervene in that process. It's a long process. It's very likely that it can't. So for us, it took us 10 months. We made some mistakes, it is true, but there was an impasse for some months. We did not get the answer in a timely fashion from the company. They call it the trust operator of the European Union. So there was an impasse for some months. So that is part of the process anyway. It's part of the regulations. So that's the way that we took it. And we are experiencing something like this at the local level. If we have to start discussions with airlines, the courier companies, these international courier services, they haven't heard or they are not aware of electronic phytosanitary certificates, and they continue and asking, demanding documents in a paper format. We have heard also that there are tasks at the level of the IPPC to start discussions with the World Customs Organization. That is excellent. In view of the needs, the funding needs that arise at the level of FAO to sustain the e-Phyto solution, we have seen that luckily there are not many needs in terms of economic resources. In our Central American region, there are regional agencies that are more inclined to the trade area, and they insist. Sometimes we don't understand much the NPPOs, and they insist on developing platform modules for electronic certificate transmission, and those initiatives are funded by international agencies. We always say this at every meeting. We wish that these agencies would allot part of that aid, that help to the IPPC, to FAO, to support the global solution. We do believe in global solutions, and that would help as well. This would help the regional agencies, to organizations, to understand that as for the transmission, electronic transmission of phytosanitary certificates, the wheel has already been invented. So we would prevent duplicity. We are on gens to be able to meet the regional objectives. We are developing an own system. So those are matters that I think that if you have a good communication, this
could have been avoided. So that was just a remark. Maybe it was a very long remark. So that is our experience. This is the acknowledgement, the recognition of the horizontal collaboration. Maybe we run a risk when we name all these institutions, all these people. Maybe I'm forgetting someone. Hector Santana was our trainer in GENS in the first sessions that we had, and luckily he is not with us. He is in the Dominican Republic, but there is a group of people that we go to, that we ask questions to. Gianluca, Nuso, the development of an own system. We have had lots of talks with him. So this is our experience, and thank you very much. We're going to stay for some minutes if you have any questions. Any question? Do we have one? Yes, Rodrigo. Very good presentation, Ruben. Thank you very much. I wanted to understand, at present, the European Union has not ruled out paper because the electronic signature is not used, and this is for Craig as well. If I understand correctly, the solution GENS incorporated the advanced electronic signature to solve the requirement of the European Union, if I recall correctly, with the experience of the Dominican Republic to go paperless. So the question is, are you paperless now with the European Union? Yes, we are paperless with the European Union. After we completed the whole recognition process for the electronic signatures by them. So it's a process that is bilaterally conducted with the European Union and the country that wants to go paperless. So we are paperless with them. And is it an own initiative or GENS signs electronically with the advanced signature? It is a demand of the European Union, as Helen Klein said. The European Union asks that certificates have a certain recognition for digital signatures. As far as we know, GENS does not produce electronic signature. Craig?
I talked all day yesterday. What are you doing to me? Well, one thing I want to make clear is I personally don't want to have countries pay for any of this system. I think it should come out of the contributions to FAO and FAO, but that's not my decision to make. For the time being, there are no charges for the system to be used, and that will at least be sustained through the end of next year, not just this year. But with the one thing I wanted to make clear is everybody's talking about electronic signatures. It doesn't have to be the electronic signature of the individual inspector. It can be a seal of the organization. And that was a big concern because some people said we have to get the signatures of everybody and it's costly, et cetera. So the EU changed that. But there is a function within the GENS that allows, and I was trying to find the technical details about how it works, and as soon as I do, I'll let you know. But there is a function with regard to the electronic signature that is fairly straightforward to put together in terms of, yeah, I can't find it right now, but it's part of the GENS. It's just it's at the bottom of the page, and I would have to, trying to do this on my phone pretty quick to answer the question, but it is a function of the GEN system to put in an electronic signature. And I know that in many cases, there have been issues with getting because of the requirement to establish an e-signature and an e-seal has to be verified by the independent or something like that. There have been a number of cases where the companies that are required to do that don't necessarily, like in the case of Panama, like you said, they aren't as efficient as they really should be. So that happens sometimes. But there is a function in gens to allow for an e-signature and e-seal.
Sí, gracias, Peter.
Thank you very much, Craig. Good morning, engineer. I would like to tell you my experience with the European Union because the same happened to me. Just like in the case of Panama, when the European Union sent the emails, they were saying that the electronic seal was missing, the electronic signature was missing. And I said, there it is. But we did not understand because they talk about an electronic envelope. So the system has to match. The GENS system has to match with traces because traces also shows if the delivery of the certificate has been accepted by them. So it's like a bullet, and with a bullet, if traces shows that bullet, it means that you haven't transmitted or the certificate has not been correctly sealed. If it is correctly sealed, you have like a sun, a little envelope. That's what it meant. If it was correctly transmitted or not, they could see an envelope. So we have to know what is missing in a system to be able to connect with the European Union, with traces in particular. Yes, we are connected, and we did not expect the recognition of an individual electronic signature of inspectors. We knew about this, but European Union gave us, I think that in IT terms, this is like a patch. It is a recognition that is in the system. That is extremely complex for me. It's complicated, but we do have the recognition. We have gone paperless with the European Union, and we have verified. Carmen has helped us a lot. We have verified in the traces system that phytosanitary certificates issued by HENS in Panama have a digital recognition. So the status changes. We verified this before and after the recognition in November 22, and happily we can say that we have that digital recognition by the European Union. Orlin Ramirez from Honduras. I don't know if the question is for Craig. I would like to know more whether GENS actually accepts the digital signature or the electronic signature, or the country can decide with the country that the electronic transfer is going to be made if it's the digital signature or an electronic signature, certified signature, a simple signature. So can I have some clarification about that? Yes, perhaps before Craig's answer, I can mention that the previous experience before the European Union, the United States, Chile, Guatemala, and Costa Rica, which was the first group with which we connected through the hub, it was simple, no signatures. It's just a transmission through the hub in an XML format with all the safety and the security measures of the system, and that's it. That was it. So it's very curious because with the United States and Chile, okay, let's formalize this through a virtual conference. That's it.
with the directors of the systems without even signing a formal agreement. So it's something completely simple. But when we talk about the European Union, it's something different. Okay, I'm sorry. I interrupt Ruben a little bit. We are a little far behind in our agenda, so I would leave the questions here for the time being, and perhaps Ruben, you're going to join us tomorrow, so if there is any question, we can continue with this tomorrow, particularly remembering that we had a break for 10:30, it's almost 11, and we have 3 speakers, and then the online streaming finishes. So if you agree, I think that the 3 speakers should give their presentations so that then we can finish in due time. Otherwise, we're going to take quite a long time to move forward. Ruben, your presentation is extremely interesting, but we're going to have you here tomorrow. So if there's any question, they can ask you some other time. Okay, let's move forward. According to the script, now Paraguay has to make a presentation. According to the script, it says that I have to be brief and no questions will be asked. You cannot ask anything. That's for you, Rodrigo. I'm looking at you. No questions. So I would like to tell you our current situation in Paraguay. All the import and export systems are done through our windows. We have 2 windows. So we have 2 windows. The single importer window for imports, the VUI in Spanish, and the single export window. So for all the exporting processes done through these windows, the VUE in Spanish. So we have 2 windows. These 2 windows are connected to the hub. We are already in a production environment. I can also tell you that the development was our own. We thought about this after the workshop. We made some contacts. We received a lot of help from all of you. So I would like to thank especially Argentina for the help that it provided to us back then. Okay, there we are. Currently, we're exchanging e-Phytos with 3 countries, Argentina, Chile, and the United States. I would like to stress that with Argentina, we started in April 2021. I would like to show the numbers of the e-Phytos received. So far, we have 13,149 received e-Phytos from Argentina and sent e-Phytos 7,601. Right now, we're 100% paperless with Argentina. I would refer also to Chile, the other country with which we're exchanging, and we're 100% paperless at the moment. With them, we started in October 2021. We received 131 e-Phytos, and we sent 1,483 e-Phytos. Okay. And with the United States, we started the exchange in a production environment on the 27th of March. This is very recent. It coincides with the presentation. Actually, we started in March. And how do we start with the United States? With a dual modality. We continue receiving paper, but only for control purposes. To check qualitatively that everything is okay. This is a period that will not take long. I think that it will take 1 month most. And then we're going to go 100% paperless with the United States as well. Okay, so continuing with the script, they told me to be brief. concise. So the perspectives that we have is to continue adding countries, keep on growing. So we're open to this. In Paraguay, we recommend that you take advantage of these workshops, which was the kickoff point for us to start using to be in a productive environment. So that would be it on Paraguay's side. Thank you very much. And Rodrigo, any questions? No, my question, do you have the configuration to receive and to look for certificates every 30 minutes to the hub? Our countries are bordering, so the loads are very fast. The shipments are very fast. So have you ever been delayed that you received the shipment before the certificate? No, it's configured every 15 minutes. But so far, we have not had any problems. But as we add more countries, perhaps we're going to go online. But we have no problems. Laura from Senasa, a certifying inspector. We do e-Phytos with Paraguay. In connection to that, Rodri, we usually have a delay. Perhaps the shipment is 15 or 20 minutes withheld because it's so that we can clean that and automatically it impacts on the e-Phytos. We usually have, but this does not give rise to any major inconvenience or problems. Okay, thank you. No further questions? Okay, great. Okay, it's my turn to make a presentation, so let us go now to the next one. I would like to invite Engineer Carlos Alexander Saravia Obregon. He's a specialist of the Subdirectorate of Plant Quarantine of the National Agricultural Health Service in Peru. Okay, good morning to all of you. I'm Carlos Alexander Saravia Obregon. I'm a specialist of the Subdirectorate of Plant Quarantine of the National Agricultural Health Service. Thank you for listening to me. I started working on electronic certification 3 years ago. The director instructed me to do this. I'm going to make a summary of the current situation in my country in terms of e-Phyto. Let's go back. So the experience that we had, the solutions that we had before, basically the approach to electronic certification. At the beginning, in 2016, we started with the Netherlands to have point-to-point exchanges. It was very helpful. There was a first approach to this kind of certification. We truly appreciate the participation and the support of Alex More to be able to have this kind of exchange. But due to the pandemic, we needed to finish this kind of exchange, and we have to start e-Phyto, so we're trying to develop this now. After that, we had the Pacific Alliance. In 2017, we have concrete exchanges with Colombia, electronic exchanges with Mexico, and also with Chile.
In 2020, we went paperless. And now we are currently working on the e-Phyto solution since 2021. And in parallel, we are working on Intercom, the countries of the Andean community. Let me tell you about the background, connectivity, the adjustments that they have to make for these electronic certifications and exchanges, the progress that we made, and the goals that we have. First, to start, we work through a foreign trade single window for import and export. In terms, they make a request in this window, they transmit the data, the details, weight, the number of boxes, the product, the country. And once they create this data, there is a code assigned, and users need to pay previously, beforehand. This is a certifying amount, and in case of tons, you increase that fee. There is a percentage for a payment. Once this user pays, a file is created, and this is in our SENASA system. The system works with BPM, and it is supported to receive requests from users, and inspectors verify the information. Once they have the inspection or the verification of documents, they issue the certificate. Once the certificate is issued or they signed, they create the XML to be able to transmit, in this case, through the single window. We have had point-to-point exchange, as I said before, but in this case, for the e-Phyto, we're working on the single window system. As I said before, this is a summary of the exchanges that we have had, Netherlands, point-to-point exchanges. This is not at present, but it was a very good experience to be able to know what electronic certification is. The Pacific Alliance, we are exchanging through the single window. We have Senacica from Mexico, Senasac from Chile, Colombia, and e-Phyto. We are currently working with Senasa Argentina. We also appreciate SAG from Chile for their support in this learning curve that we've had. On my side, 3 years ago, I did not know much about the electronic certification, so I had to learn a lot to develop some topics. VUCE, that's a single window to connect to the hub and to transmit electronic certificates. Some of the adjustments and implementation that we had to make so as to make this certification effective, validation fields from VUCE in case of imports through the certificates. So what does that mean? When there is a certificate that needs to be declared by the importer, that needs to be validated by the single window for it to be received. So in this manner, you can link this to a file, an import file in this particular case. Then a viewer of XML phytosanitary certificates in case we need to do a task and some other countries may have access to this viewer. The update of the XML certificate version or release, we had to adapt this when we worked with the Pacific Alliance for e-Phyto. We have had to make some adaptations, and this includes electronic signatures, thinking about the European Union in particular, and the transit. We saw something about this. We need to think about this in the future. Several countries are going to go paperless, so we're going to communicate to these countries that our goods are in transit. We talked to Rodrigo Robles. We should be able to implement this process and to start trials, start testing the electronic certificates, but in this case for transit goods. Our progress. For Argentina, we have had a trial period. We exchanged paper and electronic certificates With the United States, we are thinking of exchanging electronic certificates in a quality environment. And for the European Union, we have implemented the electronic signature. We have had also a little workshop this year conducted by the Netherlands, and they provided training to SENASA and BUSE as well. And we're doing this in the quality environment. We want to get here. These are our goals. We want to complete the electronic certificate with the European Union and with the US and Argentina, Chile, and Colombia, Mexico. We have implemented with them the system, but exports would represent over 70% for them of our deliveries. We issue at present an average of 200,000 certificates. With the European Union and the US, Argentina, Chile, Mexico, Colombia, we would more or less be ready with our exports. We would completely go per paper. So that was basically what I wanted to mention about the e-Phyto current situation in our country. So thank you very much.
Bien.
Okay, any questions? You were saved. No questions for you. Okay, now I would like to invite Engineer Beatriz Melcho from the Certification and Verification Department of the Directorate General for Agricultural Services of the Ministry of Livestock, Agriculture and Fisheries of Uruguay. This would be our last presentation. So you are going to close the session. And to be the last presentation, it's going to be very brief because I have to present the status of the electronic certification in Uruguay that is not implemented yet. In Uruguay, in the year 2014, we started the development of its own phytosanitary certification system for export to be able to issue automatically the phytosanitary certifications. Currently in Uruguay, we have a phytosanitary certification system that allows you to issue the certificates in paper and can be backed up by an XML system. The development of this system, as I said before, started in the year 2014, and after being developed, it provides for the implementation of the sending and the reception of electronic phytosanitary certificates. The whole process, from the request by the operator to the issue of the phytosanitary certificate by the National Plant Protection Organization, with an important component of interaction between the single windows of foreign trade. So throughout the years, we have had steps forward. And of course, there had been some problems as well, among them the articulation, the difficulties in articulation at the beginning with the different stakeholders, the availability of a place where to host the system, the availability of resources for contracting a company to provide the system to be developed. But however, currently, this administration has given priority to this, to finish, to conclude this system, and it has made some steps forward that could be implemented from last year onwards, like the hosting of a server in the Ministry of livestock, the hiring of a company to finish the development. And this is the situation. So the following steps that we will have to take to be able to make this system operational is to correct the errors by this company that was hired, which is new, and to do the connection tests, the interaction tests with the single windows and with the payment gateway, and to integrate all the concepts of payment in the system, because there are some things to be solved in that area. However, as this has a priority for the administration, and the proof of this is that I'm here with 3 representatives from the foreign trade single windows and a representative of the agricultural IT systems from the Ministry of Livestock. That's a good signal for us, in addition to the NPPO. And we hope that this year the system can become operational in order to start the implementation stage of the transmission of electronic phytosanitary certificates. And as our colleague in Ecuador, I'm also asking for patience to bear with us. And of course, we're going to request all the cooperation, the information that the countries can give us, everything that we have learned in these workshops, because you have very interesting information, the case of the GENS system, which is a possibility that we are considering right now. To analyze all the possibilities at hand, so that in a future, and I hope a not very distant one, we can start issuing e-Phytos. So that would be all, nothing more to present. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Beatriz. Any questions? Okay. So you can go. I would like to give the floor now to Paula. Yes. Good morning to all of you. My name is Paula Kupferberg. I work in the Coordination of International Affairs at SENASA. Thank all of you for your presentations. Our moderator today, thank you very much. And with these presentations, we finish the plenary activities of today that have been streamed live through SENASA's and IGA's websites, YouTube channel, sorry. So we invite you to join us remotely for the plenary session tomorrow. It's going to start at 8:30 Argentine time, from the morning to 5 in the afternoon, just like yesterday. So we would like to tell you that tomorrow's agenda has had some changes. So the presentation of other solutions by Claudia Berrospi of Peru has been moved forward to 11 after the first break in the morning, to continue with the presentations of the private sector up to after lunch. And then before the closing with the authorities, we're going to have an exchange session. This updated agenda can be seen by the people here joining us online at COSAVE's website, cosave.org. You can scan your QR code in your accreditation cards, and the updated agenda is there so that you can have a look at that. So with this information, I'm going to take some minutes to say goodbye to the people joining us online. We're going to wait for a few minutes to finish with the live streaming, and we hope to see you tomorrow.